All right, hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. This could be episode 2, and on this episode, I have Danni Clinton, who is also another composer. But instead of me introducing him, I'll let him introduce himself. So, Danni, you can introduce yourself. Just any background from the start all the way up to basically what you're doing now. Be as descriptive as you want, really.
Hi, Dean. How's things? Yeah. I suppose that I can. Music, I suppose, has been one of those things that I've had really in my life since I was a teenager, really, you know. So I kind of came from, I suppose what the Americans are calling now EDM. So I would have been a kind of a dance, an electronic dance music DJ back in, the late 1990s, you know.
Oh, all right.
I'm old. I know. I would have. I started very young, so I've kind of been doing the music. I would have been doing the kind of dance music scene in Dublin in early 2000s is when I actually started doing radio. So I don't know if you know if you remember, there was kind of a pirate scene in the early 2000s with kind of Kiss FM, and another one would have been Hot FM, and a lot of actually the DJs that are on the likes of 2FM now, they kind of would have started on like Pulse and things like that. So that's kind of the era I came from, you know. So that was my early kind of career for music, and I started doing the whole kind of dance music thing up until about, I'd say, 2005 maybe. And I suppose at that stage I sort of went away from music for about 5 years because I wanted to concentrate on my education. So I went to university and I got a degree in engineering, you know. So and I suppose in the meantime, I suppose like the scene, the electronic music dance scene, it sort of went down a little bit, I suppose. Like they closed down all the pirate radio stations for a start, and I suppose a lot of people went their separate ways, and a lot of people got into, you know, I suppose hip hop and R&B kind of took over a little bit as well. And I suppose, like for me, like as a kid, with the other style of music I always loved was cinematic music, you know. So yeah. I always loved Danny Elfman, and like I remember I had the soundtrack for The Nightmare Before Christmas, you know, when I was 13 years of age, you know. I loved I don't know what, it was just the instrumentation, the orchestration, the colors that were in that particular movie for me was just like, whoa, you know. Yeah. And I suppose like Hans Zimmer then would have been the other composer who would have had a big influence on me in the early years. But
like a lot of people as well, in fairness.
Yeah,
I think he's influenced a lot of people at this point.
I think like really, you know, it was always something that was there, like the whole cinematic thing, you know. But it was up until recently, I suppose, it was always one of those things that was unobtainable, because it was like, well, sure, you have to be in Hollywood or LA and be like have access to an orchestra to be able to do this, you know. So I suppose in the era now that we're in with, like, you know, MIDI and virtual instruments, like I actually kind of came back into the music scene and discovered that this was now possible. Like I think I don't know if you know Daniel James.
Yeah, Daniel James, the composer, yeah.
Yeah, so I would have discovered, like, you know, one or two of his YouTube videos, and I think the very first one I saw was Albion 1. He basically done an overview of Albion, and that just changed my life. I was like, whoa, you can actually do this now, you know. So that was about 2015 was when I first saw that, like, those videos, and since then I've essentially started down the road of like making kind of cinematic music using Logic as my main DAW, you know, and kind of started digging deeper, and I discovered that there's a whole scene, there's a whole kind of industry around music libraries, you know, and music for media, you know. So it was this is actually something you can kind of write cinematic music and submit it to these, you know, they're essentially music labels, you know, but they specialize in getting music for on television, you know.
For sync base, yeah. So that's one thing that I didn't sort of say in the introduction. Danni is mainly, I suppose you say, TV composer / library composer, really. With that sort
Yeah,
of way. Yeah. So it's looking at sync, basically, writing music for libraries, music libraries, and hopefully getting that music synced to a TV show, an advert, anything that's basically syncable for media, music-wise. So it wouldn't be. Have you done any films at all, short films, or is it all library and TV placements?
yeah, exactly. I haven't actually, and you know, I always found. I mean, I could be wrong in thinking this, but because I didn't go through the whole music college thing in Ireland, I always felt like you kind of need the contacts to be able to go to get those
Yeah.
films. And to be honest with you, I didn't know anyone in Ireland that was doing what I was doing. So I kind of went. Most of the clients I deal with are in the US, and the labels I work for are all US based. You know, so the film thing was just something I just didn't know how you even get into it in Ireland. And I think it's. I mean, I could be wrong in saying this, Dean, but I think it's maybe Ireland is a bit more like who you know with that kind of thing.
I would say so as well. So yeah, if there's any like people listening from like London or America, you could be considered quite lucky. Over in, well, Dublin would be obviously our capital, but even as a capital, it's shockingly small and close and knit. Like there's very close knit people, and there wouldn't be nowhere near as many opportunities for anything. So, but even that was one question. There's actually loads of questions around my head, but I was going to ask you about formal training. So you said you've obviously haven't gone through the college route of music.
Yeah.
But even me, I have, but that didn't necessarily really help me make any connections.
Okay.
It helped me like theory wise for music and orchestration, all theoretical things when it came to music, but the actual business side and making connections when it came to media composition didn't really help me. That might have helped me meet a few performers, like if I maybe need a soloist or a few singers or maybe someone that can conduct or orchestrate different things. That would have helped me make them sort of connections. But as it came to directors and producers, video game makers, anything like that, where it's more media based, it didn't really help in that sort of sense. And when I left college, I was then left thinking, okay, how am I actually going to do this really? And over here, like you said, it's very small, and it is a lot about what you know, or well, who you know over here, and it can be kind of hard to break in because a lot of the time, once someone over here finds someone they like working with, they aren't really got to separate, like break away from them. I find they just got to stick with them a lot of the time because it is so small over here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I also, it's funny. You mentioned that. I think the other problem is that there's just so few people who know about this in Ireland. Like so if you if you think about Ireland in terms of music, it's all about the indie scene and the bands, and which is great. And don't get me wrong, I think we've lots to offer when it comes to that stuff, and also obviously our trad Irish stuff as well. But I think I'm not like we'll probably talk about it maybe a bit later. But obviously you've got your PROs, your performance rights organizations. Now when I was starting off, I had no clue what they were really. So when I signed with my first US music publisher, they advised I should join ASCAP, which is the US kind of PRO. I didn't really know about IMRO, So basically I've been with ASCAP since 2016, I think, but my point was that when I look at IMRO and when I look at kind of their feeds, the only things I ever see come up there are really all
bands and artists. It's never composer based, really. Yeah, I know what you mean.
They have two talks really, that they've invited speakers over, which were interesting, but it's very small. I mean, really does not for us what we do,
No, it's very small. And on that point, did the library that you first signed with, did they not recommend BMI, or do you just went straight with ASCAP? Am I right in saying that BMI pays better for TV royalties, or is it the opposite way?
Well, you know what? Like, it's funny. I'm actually kind of going through this, or I'd say ordeal at the moment, because that particular company that I signed with, they advised joining with ASCAP. Now, I didn't really know there was a difference at the time. I didn't know there was. I hadn't even heard of BMI at that stage. I just
you just jumped that. You took whatever he recommended. And
yeah,
jumped on.
and I had heard the name ASCAP before, and I was like, oh yeah, like, and I think Hans Zimmer signed with ASCAP, so you're going, oh, this has to be good, you know.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, in the 4 years that I've been with ASCAP, I've learned, because obviously this composer community is small. Everyone knows everyone. We all talk, you know. We're all saying, well, okay, you got a placement and that, did you get, you know, paid for this, whatever. And what I can say is that, and this is just my experience, it seems that the BMI do tend to focus on collecting royalties and performances for everything, including cable and cable television stuff in the US. Whereas ASCAP, they do you probably know, they do a survey. They use a survey system where essentially the small networks in the US are assessed on a survey base. So unless your piece of music happened to come up during that survey that ASCAP were running, you won't be paid. So
that's not a good system in my mind.
Yeah, so there was lots. I was missing out on tons of royalties because of the fact that ASCAP were just not. They just weren't tracking them, you know. So I resigned actually from ASCAP about a year and a half. Well, I think maybe it's 2 years now, you know. So I'm actually with BMI now, you know. So
just to clarify, actually, sorry to cut across for anyone listening. Once you've registered with performance right organisation, so a PRO, that works stays with them. So Danny will still be collecting royalties through ASCAP because whatever music he's talking about has already been registered with them in the first place. You know, he's now moved to BMI.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, actually, funny you mentioned that. I decided it wasn't. I was probably missing out on a lot of performances, and going forward over the next years, I really don't want it to continue. So I approached ASCAP last year just to say that I wanted to move my back catalogue from them over to BMI. So so that's essentially that's in the process of happening at the moment, you know.
So hopefully you can catch up on whatever backlog is basically there.
I don't know if I can ever.
Even if you can, actually, I'm not even sure myself really if you can actually.
Yeah, it's more just going forward. It's just me mad, you know. I'm missing out on performances. So I just thought to myself, look, you know what? I'm just going to move all my tracks over to BMI. So yeah. It's, believe me, look, for anyone who's kind of listening, there's a lot of composers out there who are, they may be with one PRO or the other, and they're kind of thinking to themselves, it's too much of a hassle to move, but I think it's worth it. If you really aren't happy with a PRO, you really should just do a bit of homework on how you actually can move. You know, like just takes a bit of work. That's all. You know.
Yeah, no, signing with a PRO that you're happy with is a big thing, and there's PROs everywhere, all around the world. Like I can't even name off all of them, but this year studying my music business diploma that I'm almost finished. I'll be finished now next 6 weeks, probably be finished. But my music publishing lecturer, he was, I think he was head of international royalties. He had a very big position in IMRO. He did. So I've learned a good bit about PROs through him. And now he will talk about IMRO a lot, but he won't just push anyone towards IMRO. He still says educate yourself on any sort of pro out there, but he'd have information on pros everywhere. So he can name the head pro in South Korea and Brazil, everywhere, like, because that was his job to know all these pros and interlink with all of them when he was there. And it's a tricky business, and to collect royalties through all of them, because they all have to trickle through all different pipelines to actually get to individual pros in the end and hopefully pay out the composer in the first place. So find out what pro focuses on what, or just seeing which ones are even popular in the first place. But the main ones would be like BMI, ASCAP, PRS, Game, even in Germany as well, is a pretty big one.
Yeah.
There's a few out there, so it's definitely worth looking into to find what ones actually got to suit you the most.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me see. I have loads of questions I'd like to ask you. I'm gonna go back to the formal training thing. So, did you have, when you were doing DJing, some DJs do have a certain understanding of music and some just kind of go with it. Did you have sort of any sort of training in music theory or anything that before going into actually composing orchestral based music for TV or?
No, no, really. Like, I mean, when I see as a like initially when I was a DJ, I was obviously just I was more kind of playing other people's music,
Yeah.
like so playing records or whatever, So I had an ear. I knew for me, I felt like I actually knew a good track when I heard one, because a lot of the stuff I used to do was that a lot of the kind of trance scene that kind of kicked off in the UK and Ireland, it would have started in Germany and the Netherlands and all over Europe first. So I kind of was getting a lot of that stuff directly from there, and featuring it on my radio shows before a lot of other DJs got it. So it was kind of like I seemed a lot of those tracks became big hits at a later stage. So when they were released in the UK and Ireland, So I always felt I knew what a good track was. That was, I always had it was an ear, really. But I suppose just before I kind of started doing the cinematic thing, I felt like for the preceding years, I really wanted to get back into music. So I actually decided to do some piano lessons, So I actually went and got some lessons and I went up to grade 3,
Okay.
So at that stage, that's when I kind of learned a bit of theory around scales and majors and minors and all that kind of stuff. So I that's where a little bit of a background in theory came from.
Realistically, at that point, you have more than enough to go off and actually write music. And anyways, to be quite honest, actually go and write music at that point, like.
Yeah, you do, and that was actually, if I'm being honest with you, that was the one thing that sort of annoyed me about the lessons, is that it was almost like okay, here's these four pieces, go home and practice them as much as possible, and here learn this scale and do this. And I wanted to know how to create music. They don't, like, obviously it is good from lessons, and piano lessons are great to get that background, but they don't teach you how to create music. That's a different skill. It's a different thing, and that's really what I wanted. So, like you said, I actually felt like I had enough by grade 3 to be able to sit down and compose my own music. That's why and then I stopped doing the lessons, and I'm focused on writing my own stuff then.
Exactly. And you were saying when you came back and you've watched Daniel James, and I've watched plenty of Daniel James. I think he's an amazing composer. I've followed him for a long time. But what samples? I asked the last composer I had with me on this, Christopher, hit some of his best samples. What would you actually consider some of your sort of go-to samples to actually use now, since you said it's so available to actually create realistic orchestral music and stuff?
Well, the thing is, I actually do a mixture of things, but I suppose I do sound design as well as orchestra.
Yeah.
I work for a trailer company as well.
I was going to ask you about. I will save that one for later. Don't worry, I will ask you about that later. I will.
For the TV stuff, if you're doing orchestral underscore, I think the best ones really are Albion. I suppose, like, for the kind of the longs and your sustains, you really can't beat the Albion libraries. I'd say for the more aggressive stuff, I think what a great library is LAS.
LA scoring strings. Yeah,
I love them. I actually find they've great bite in them. If you use the
short strings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so you use the right reverb on them, you can kind of get and then blend them with another library, maybe Albion or cinematic strings. You can get a great sound.
Yeah, and you mentioned Albion a good bit there. So do you use more all-in-one style libraries rather than individual sections? So to where Albion will be more, you have your just high and low strings, high and mid brass. Do you use more all-in-one libraries rather than something like Cinematic Studio strings? Yeah,
I'm using all-in-ones really because of the fact that the music I'm writing, it has to be it has to be big and exciting, and like that kind of intimate, close stuff, like where you need sections. I have no need for that, and neither do the publishers I work for. Like for the TV stuff I do, I write a lot of sports music, and sports music they want it to be big and bombastic and in your face, and so I need that kind of I need that kind of power really behind me. I can't really be weak, you know. So the individual sections thing just doesn't really work for me, you know.
Okay, that's fair enough. Then I would be if I have Albion 1. I think I have a different album as well. Obviously, I had this conversation in the last podcast. Well, sample libraries all come down to your price range, really, for any composer, because some of them are, I think, outrageous. Some of the prices. But lucky enough, I think for a lot of composers nowadays, there's actually a lot of top class, actually free sample libraries at this point nearly, and a lot of cheap ones as well that I feel nearly compete with some of the actual expensive ones sometimes. So obviously that's pretty decent for any composer nowadays. I'm not sure if they use any free libraries at all.
No, but I would actually be curious to say of which ones you think yourself. Like, which ones would you?
Well, the main two that I look at a lot of the time would be Spitfire Labs. The Spitfire Labs.
Yeah.
Some of them are pretty decent, and you can get some interesting sounds out of more than anything else as well. Like the realism isn't bad. Like it's not going to really stand out as, oh, that's a really cheap library. It actually sounds quite good, but it's just some of the unique sounds that sort of come with them. And then I'm not sure if you use any Project Sam at all, but Project Sam have a full free orchestral range, and some of them are great here. Like they're outrageously good for free libraries.
Okay.
They wouldn't really stick out on a track either. You could easily probably put them in there, and they wouldn't stand out at all. They just blend in perfectly, really.
Yeah.
I think worth looking at, but that's what I'm saying for a lot of newer composers. It's getting much easier and better just to actually have some good quality samples there ready to write straight away.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know too much of the Project Sam stuff, but yeah, I have actually a few of those labs libraries, like the Felt piano, you know, and then a few of the smaller ones. It's obviously Albion is Spitfire as well, you know. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I have to. I think I was talking to a composer there the other day. We were just having this conversation that there's probably far too many composers out there who think, you know, if I just get the next string library that's, you know, released by Hans Zimmer or whatever, then I'll be the next, you know, I'm going to write my master. Yeah. I think you can get bogged down with trying to buy endless amounts of sample libraries, and you can spend thousands, but really, once you have the bread and butter of a couple of decent libraries, you know, get to work.
You're better just honing the craft at that point.
Yeah.
Just get going, actually learning the samples that you have at that point. If you actually just learn them correctly and what they can actually do, that's when you start finding the best sounds you can actually get out in the first place, not by sort of upgrading and buying different ones.
Yeah, so, you know, it's kind of limit yourself. And, you know, I actually find sometimes if you limit yourself a little bit, you can, that's when you can get more creative, because you know you have to. Even if you've got 10,000 sample libraries, I mean, I just think it can overwhelm you, you know, and you know, it's just focus on your craft is the key thing for me, you know.
And from working with libraries and TV, do you work off a template? So say if you would get a brief for a certain, say it is a sports ad, do you have a sports sort of template that you go to within Logic, or you start from scratch each time?
To be honest with you, like my template tends to be, well, I suppose it depends on the track, but my template tends to be the last best track I done kind of thing.
Okay.
You know, so like I mean, obviously if it's in the same style, but I would tend to just pull up that last track. All the tracks are obviously loaded, and I sort of work from there, and it morphs into a different track. You know, that's because, you know, like I would have already set up the last previous track to be at a point where the production is at a point that I progressed to. But if I was to start all over again, then all those little tweaks and all those little tricks that I learned are essentially gone, you know. So that's why I take each project as a point where I'm actually increasing
a new learning curve, sort of, to move on to the next.
Yeah, my abilities have gone to that point, and to be honest with you, like that's what every composer should be doing, is that the latest track that they make should be the best track they've done. That's the way I see it, you know. In terms of production, anyway, and like, you know, I can tell you from a lot of the, you know, the proper music libraries that are out there that you want to be working with, the exclusive ones anyway. It's all about production for them, you know. I mean,
yeah, and I can vouch for that as well. Like I haven't gone down the library route. Like I haven't worked on too many projects. I think I've worked on 3-4 short films, nothing major, and then one small podcast thing on YouTube. Like nothing major compared to what you've done within library music. But when one genre I do love, which is trail music, and I will get to that later. But that the biggest thing with trail music is production. That's what's let me down. It's not that I can't compose trail music. I have a very good grasp of the formulaic sort of formulas of trail music and how it's written, because I just enjoy it so much. But the production quality in trail music is like top notch. Like it's ridiculous how good some of those tracks are when it comes to production. So
yeah.
when it comes to actually getting into certain libraries or certain publishers, you can write a symphony. You could write a symphony quality piece from like a classical composer, but if it's not produced well and if the samples aren't good, it just won't stand out and it won't get picked for you to actually be signed somewhere.
Exactly, yeah, and that's it's a different skill set. You know, you've got these guys who are, as you know yourself, like this is like a world community of composers from all over the world. I mean, I work with and I know composers from almost every country in the world, and like some of them come from a background where they literally done orchestration since the age of 12,
mm-hmm.
and other guys are craft and their production is just out of this world, and sometimes those things don't. If you can do both, then you're
yeah.
So that's why it's kind of. I actually find it's a different skill, really.
Oh, it is a completely different skill, and I'm always intrigued by. Just because I've came from a classical background, I'm always intrigued by, because I would have been raised that way within music, saying, oh, you learn how to play your instrument, learn this piece, and then you learn your theory around it. Now, as I've grown, I've realized you don't need that. I do think composers should learn some sort of theory, at least how to notate or something like that, because it will save them money in the long run if they come to working on projects, getting things live scored. They want to hire an orchestrator or something to be able to notate themselves, small things like that.
Yeah.
But there's some composers out there, like I mentioned them in the last podcast, I mentioned again, Alex McCalla, I can't remember if I pronounced his second name correctly.
Alex. Yeah, he's on YouTube.
Yeah, he's on YouTube. He has a very big following. I think he has over 30,000 subscribers at this point. Pretty sure.
Yeah,
he was a trailer composer. It's Italian composer. He was a trailer composer at one point. I don't think he's still with any of the trailer publishers that he's with, because he kind of got a bit bogged down on the style of trailers to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
But he has zero like training at all. Learned everything from ear, and his compositions and his are amazing. His tracks are great, but his production level is just top notch as well.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see people come from different sort of strands and what they actually come out with.
Yeah. It really is a case of how much you want it, like if you can put the dedication in and really like make it your passion and put the time in, like then you can achieve like a lot of success. But like people kind of, I suppose when I post placements on my Facebook page or whatever, and people are going like, wow, how did you do that or whatever, and it's almost like they think like, it fell in your lap, it's like it's hard work, it's like I almost feel like saying to them, the Saturday nights that you're out which partying with your friends, I'm trying to finish a deadline stuck in the studio, because that's my passion now, and like
that's my passion, that's my job, that's what I want to do.
So it is it is a lot of work to get to level. Well, but I suppose like back to the production thing, it can be very hard to when you kind of self-assess yourself as a composer now today, it can be very hard to think, why am I being turned down for or being rejected by libraries or whatever, or why am I being told my production is still not up to scratch? But if you actually go back a year and listen to the tracks you were making then, you'll probably go, oh Jesus, how did I think about then?
How did I think them tracks are ever going to get accepted in the first place?
So you just have to keep grinding. That's the thing, and you should see that you're getting better and better every year, and every track really,
And you mentioned your placements there. How many placements do you think you're up to at this point?
I don't know.
Or at least notable ones that would stand out to you that you're happy with. How many do you think you stick?
Like a lot of my placements so far are TV, you know. So like I've had play. I mean, I'll just name some of the networks.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I've had placements on CBS, NBC, NFL Network, CNN, Discovery, MTV, ITV, Animal Planet, RTE.
Any big TV show going at the minute, really, any TV station, you've had a placement there somewhere.
I actually, with the US stuff, I think it's more a case of which ones I haven't yet that I really want to get on. So I'd love to get. I haven't had a placement on HBO yet.
I had a feeling you say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to get a placement on HBO. I have a lot of respect for what they do, you know, as a network, you know, and on also the ABC. I'd like to get a placement just because I've had a placement on the other big, you know, two, you know, CBS and NBC, you know.
Is Netflix on that list at all?
Actually, no, I haven't had placement on Netflix. Netflix is probably one of those things that you might not want a placement on Netflix in terms of money, because
money, yeah.
The whole streaming thing, streaming services,
it's strange when it comes to royalty payments. It can be.
Yeah, and they're fractions of. I mean, it really depends, but I mean, some of it can be just not worth it, you know. So, anyway, the libraries, the publishers that I'm dealing with, I'm not sure if they have too many contracts or whatever relationships yet with Netflix, but of course, Netflix is going to be the future. So, and you'll get a lot of composers who are very worried about the fact of where this is going with the whole Netflix thing, because, as you say, as I said earlier, the royalties thing is fractions of network television, and that's the thing you'll notice as well with the whole royalties thing. There's a massive difference between getting a placement on CBS at prime time versus something that's on cable, you know, like I don't know, some Discovery or something like that, you know. There's a huge difference, huge.
Yeah, well, you see that even in, we be talking a lot about as composed and published type, but even from the record industry of like music art and stuff, when you look at the money that comes through Spotify, I don't, like, if people don't realize it, pretty sure the Spotify streaming income is around 0.0004, something like that. That's what an artist earns from a Spotify stream. It takes, I'm pretty sure, around 1 million streams or nearly plus 1 million to earn 3,500 off a song.
Yeah.
Which 1 million streams is not easy to get in the slightest. In today's market of how saturated music is nowadays, it's not easy to get that at all. Like, and that's just to make 3,500 grand.
Yeah.
So,
exactly. And you know,
it's rough.
And you know, like this is why the music industry, like, you know, itself has actually gone complete reversal. You know, like, so your indie band essentially puts an album out on whatever Spotify, and that's basically to promote their tours, because they don't make any money off sales. You know, so they make the money off the concerts. You know. So
yeah, it's gone completely live. Like, it's funny enough, like, composers to an extent nearly have more, I wouldn't say more avenues than artists, but at times it kind of feels like they do, because if an artist just sat and recorded music and never toured or played shows, they'd be left broke forever, more likely.
Yeah.
To where a composer can sit in a studio and write music because they understand the side of publishing a lot more and sync and different things like that, to where a lot of artists actually don't understand that side of the actual business a lot.
Yeah, they don't. And it's funny because I suppose with this whole coronavirus that's going on at the moment, that's exactly what's happening. Like, you know, you've got all these performers, you know, who essentially make their living from gigging, are not making any money now because they've had to cancel all their concerts. And, you know, like, the stuff that's coming in from the likes of Bandcamp and these streaming services, that's not going to sustain them. Whereas on the opposite, you've got the media guys who are like myself and yourself, whatever. We're still having to supply the television networks for music. You know, that hasn't stopped. I'm still.
No, that industry's still going, exactly.
And you know, like, I mean, there's more people watching television now than ever, Rick. You know, so yeah, I mean, it's a funny one, really. I am still kind of shocked of how few people know about music sync, because it's definitely an avenue for producers and composers to go down.
It's a huge thing. Like I was only reading a report the other day, and it's because like the diploma course I'm doing this year, I went and originally did this because I wanted to educate myself. I knew there's three modules. There's a recording industry, live industry, and music publishing industry. They're the three modules in the course. I particularly wanted to go just nearly to the music publishing industry, just to completely educate myself on that, because I knew that'd be the most relevant to me being a composer.
Yeah.
But the further I've gone into the course, I've actually just really enjoyed music business in general, and I actually would have no problem working just as an actual music businessman, just as much as a freelance composer at this point. Now, I know a few people that do both. It can be hard to juggle both. It really can be.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on what level you get on either side of the bracket. But now, like I'm doing an internship at the minute in a publishing company over here, but we aren't representing any composers. We represent songwriters. So now I'm looking at sync for songwriters, and these songwriters now have to realize sync is there for them. Like, it's not just there as a composer. Like, there is opportunities there for songwriters, and I'm thinking that report that I read, I'm pretty sure sync and publishing is now the most profitable industry within like side of the industry of music. It's very hard to calculate all the money within it, compared to those reports constantly done on recording and live industry. Is not always reports done on the publishing side, but I'm pretty sure at this point actually is the most lucrative side of the industry at this point.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, and it's funny because I do hear, like, I just watching television now, in Dublin, I'd hear the likes of like a television advert will come on, and the likes of Gavin James or something, one of his tracks is on it, and you're sort of going, there, that's music sync. He would have been paid a sync for that.
That's a sync. Yeah, that's a sync, exactly.
A good sync.
Oh yeah. And I'm gonna actually ask you, because this leads into this, because I don't think I even got the full answer myself at the end. So you're saying at the end of your DJing, and you realize when you're watching Daniel James that there was actually a world out there for library music and stuff. So what exactly, how did you get your first step in there? Like, what, you don't have to name the library that you went to first or anything like that if you don't want to, but how exactly did you first get into library music and realize what sync was and how you went about it, like?
Well, I suppose I found a couple of forums on the net. So there's a really good forum called VI Control, and there's a lot of people hang out there. I think Hans Zimmer himself actually hangs out there under an alias.
It's very Spitfire based as well. It is, and stuff for composer libraries and stuff, or sample libraries and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But there is a section there, on how to the industry, and that's really when I started learning about the different tiers of library music. So you've got your royalty free tier, then you've got your non-exclusive libraries, then you've got your exclusive libraries, and then you've got your kind of trailer libraries. So that's really when I just started educating myself about like the industry, and like there's the different structures. So I started. I reached out to a couple of composers as well who were sort of a bit more established than I was since I was one. And then a few of those guys, they said to me, "Look, don't go for the big boys just yet. Like, maybe start off on maybe one or two of the royalty-free sites like Pond5 or Audio Jungle. Upload a few of your tracks and sell them and see what happens, see what sticks, and see how you get on." So that's how I started. I basically wrote some of my about 15 of my earlier tracks that I just sat down and wrote, and the first 6 months of doing composing, I uploaded onto Pond5, and I started making sales. So that was really the first foot in the door. Then after that, really, I started to look at other libraries that were doing more non-exclusive deals, and that was Audio Sparks was the first library I joined, and they were the ones who kind of advised me on joining ASCAP, So they were the first, and then since then I just was doing research on different libraries and trying to find different publishers to partner with, really, and that's it. You just have to keep looking, because they're not all. Sometimes they come and go as well. I mean, sometimes a publisher or a library can be performing for 5 years, and then all of a sudden it's dead because someone else came along, or they just, or for whatever reason, really, a lot of composers left or whatever,
Yeah, and I would say for anyone looking to get into library music, be careful what libraries. Now you'll learn what you learn as everything's like on process learning, like as you're going. But some libraries are very sort of wishy-washy. They aren't what they look like on the forefront. They might, like, if you go onto a library page and don't see any place, if it's a big non-exclusive library, or if it's any form of exclusive library, and you see nothing, if they're advertising themselves as a big library and you see no sort of placements or big sort of sub-publishers or anything like that, they might just be trying to front that they're bigger than what they actually are.
Yeah.
And you might actually not get the right experience out. I'm not sure, have you experienced that over your time as a composer, really?
Well, I tell you one thing is that was always something that I could never really understand with some people, is that they would sign 10 tracks away to some so-called publisher who had no credits, no placement, no nothing, and you're sort of going, whoa. The only thing they had is like a fancy art album cover, kind of going,
yeah.
So I for me, I'm very cautious, and where I was giving my music away. Now, obviously, I made some mistakes in the early stage. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But as you kind of learn more and more about the publishers, you start to learn who are the people who actually have the relationships, because that's the key thing. If a publisher doesn't have any relationships with the clients, who are your music supervisors at the the TV networks and what have you, or the trailer houses, they're not worth a crap. I mean,
there's no syncs there for you, really. In the end.
You're wasting your time. It might be nice to say that you're
signed to this or signed to that.
Yeah, but you're actually going to go nowhere with it. So I think the other way, and that you're right in saying that, you go to their website, and they should show placements and whatever, but there is publishers who don't do that. They won't actually, because they get so many placements that they don't really have to.
Yeah,
but kind of have to know.
I'm not counting down ones, because a lot, if you come across one at that point, you'll more likely know from the composers they have with them, if they're established ones or not, to an extent, and they just have so many placements they don't really bother showing them. But from their composer roster if they're established or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then obviously the other thing is the big labels who are attached to the majors, your BMGs, your Warner, your Universal. Those guys, they're Sony. They're just big players. So if you can get in there, on the other side of that, like, some of those big players, like, they have so many artists with them that it might not be best to be with them, because they have so many. You're just one of,
You're really, you're like, there's a number in that sort of case, and a lot of the time they are actually dealing with artists. They aren't focused a lot on producers. Sometimes they aren't focused a lot on composers, unless it's something like Warner have, I think it's Warner Songs or Warner Chappell Songs, because what people don't realize about the majors, the majors branch off into all different sections. So Warner isn't publishing, Warner Chappell is publishing.
Yeah.
Sony isn't publishing, Sony/ATV is publishing. So there's all different. You have to be careful where you're pitching if you actually got to go look at the majors. But I think, if you do sign up to one, you have to be careful, because you will be a number, and a lot of them aren't as sort of niche towards what you're going to write as what you'd want it to be. Yeah. Sony ATV kind of can be, because they have Bleeding Fingers music with them, which is Hans Zimmer's own personal sort of library house with a lot of composers. I know a composer signed to him at one point. And then they also have Extreme as well, Extreme Music, which I consider to have one of the best rosters in the world, really, as composers go. It's absolutely it's just a ridiculous roster. But that would be really geared towards composer, and they are with Sony ATV. So if you signed with Extreme, you'd be fine, because it's just full of like top end composers.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still under the actual banner of Sony.
Yeah, I mean those like I suppose anyone who's doing production music, they're kind of the top guys that everyone really wants to get to, because I mean, in terms of earning and earning a career, you probably need, maybe not need to, but like if you're assigned to someone like Extreme, those guys, I mean, they're all over the world. They're
Oh
in
yeah,
networks. They're the guys who are. I mean, you got like Two Steps from Hell, Thomas
yeah,
Burgess. I mean, he's signed there. Like I mean, this guy is a multimillionaire based on the stuff that just basically airs all over television. All
yeah.
over the world. But they're not there is smaller independent guys who just do just as good,
Oh yeah, they aren't the. I'm not trying to make them out to be the end all be all. Actually, if anyone's sort of thinking that way, if you sign to a good few exclusives or some of the even some of the top trailer publishers, and if you get a few things, you'll definitely make a living off those your royalties and your sings alone. If you get your name signed to a good few publishers, you don't have to be signed to the majors to actually make a living out of music. You don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so don't just think, and that's the thing. People don't. I suppose when you're learning about kind of music publishers and stuff like that, when you see names like Universal and Sony, and it's like you probably your first thing is to think, oh well, all the established artists, the pop artists are signed to those. They must be the best ones. But it's kind of different in the sort of music for media world. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Smaller publishers who just have great relationships with the end clients, they can just be even better.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely two more questions I want to try to get to you before I'll let you go. One, how do you find deadlines when it comes to briefs in sort of the library music field? I know, like, if you're working as a media composer when it comes to video games or TV, deadlines are very varied, obviously, depending on how short the post-production time is on a project, really. To where libraries you're working more off briefs, but obviously briefs can have different deadlines as well. So, how do you find the briefs? Do some have really short and some have really long ones, or they're all sort of around the same time frame ish?
They tend to be always short. I mean, like sometimes, like for me anyway, with the TV stuff that I would do, the brief that comes in tends to be we're looking for 3 to 5 tracks by next Thursday, so you have a week, so it's you have to hope that you haven't lost your creativity and you're going to be inspired when you sit down at the keyboard, because it's like, okay, right there, I have a week to do this. Strangely enough, I find deadlines actually help my creativity.
So I find that as well. I actually find them easier to sit down and write to. That's what, like, I'll openly admit here, I haven't been getting a chance to write a lot lately. One, because I'm focusing on my business stuff, and I'm not actually home at my own setup currently at the minute, so my mic quality isn't as good. That's why, because I don't have my Yeti or stuff. But two, when I'm just trying to sit down and actually write music as a sort of portfolio piece, and I don't have someone setting me a deadline, I actually find it very hard to actually get inspired and just write.
Yeah. And as part of it, Dean, as well, when they're sending you a brief, they're going to be specific of what they want.
It's descriptive.
So you have the descriptive part, and then you'll have references. So they'll say we like this, and they might send you like a YouTube clip or something. Now the thing is, obviously, like these creatives, they never really know exactly what they want, but they kind of have an idea, and you sort of as a composer have to
fill the gaps.
Yeah, but you can't just give them back exactly what the reference was, because that's just copycat. You need to bring your own voice to what they want, and somehow unconsciously sort of, or on a subconscious like level, get into their mind of what will work for their projects. It's a kind of a bit of a tough one, really, but you just have to kind of go with your own instincts.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing there is one more one after this as well, but I wanted to get this because I do love trailer music so much. I will say, Danni, I'm pretty sure, to my knowledge anyways, is the third only person from Ireland to sign to this publisher, behind Dean Valentine and Kieran Birch, which is really slow motion. Definitely within the biggest, I'd say the top 3 trailer publishers in the world.
Yeah.
Probably really slow motion. Audio Machine, I say, would be there as well. And then
Yeah,
maybe Elephant. I'm not sure. Elephant Museum. There'll be a few other ones that maybe could slot into the top three as well. Colossal, actually, yeah, Colossal will be there as well. But I'd say really slow motion and Audio Machine are like two. They're just around so long. They're just top of the range. And Danny has signed to really slow motion. So tell me exactly how you moved into the sort of, because you started TV first, obviously, which is a lot different to doing trailer. So how did you move more towards the trailer side, and then how did really slow motion sort of come about, and from there on?
Well, I suppose a bit like yourself there. Like I actually always loved trailer music as well. Well, when I discovered it, I suppose along the way while I was doing the TV thing, you know. So, you know, some of the first tracks that I kind of heard of this kind of this trailer stuff was from really slow motion music and also Audio Machine. They were always the two labels for me that were putting out the content that was like, whoa, this is what is this stuff? This is, I'd love to be able to do this, you know. So it was always looking at really slow motion was always a case of like, oh Jesus, I'm nowhere near that level, you know. So I was more kind of figuring out how do I get to that, and so that's when I started to kind of figure out, well, what is trailer music and how do you actually compose stuff to that level, and how do you get that production level. So I suppose one advantage for the type of TV music that I tended to be writing for one of my publishers was that they wanted that kind of epic orchestral style, you know, because a lot of that sports music
it's real punchy. It'd be real like in your face, and very punchy like.
Yeah, and it's hybrid, so it's not just pure orchestral, because pure orchestral probably wouldn't really work. So it tends to be hybrid. There's a lot of sound design. There's a lot of big hits. There's a lot of trailer-ish sounding stuff in it, you know. So my sound was already kind of there. I mean, not production-wise, but like the overall sound was similar enough to trailer. So it was really more just about focusing on structure. So working on my craft, figuring out the structure, and then reaching out to a couple of trailer composers out there that I knew were sort of really big in the scene. You mentioned Dean Valentine there. Dean was actually probably the first person I realized. I was like, God, this guy's actually Irish, and he's doing trailer music at the top level in the world. And I reached out to Dean, and he just kind of gave me some hints. He said, "You have great ideas, and keep going, and just work on your production, and you know you'll get there." Like, you know. So it was Dean and a few other guys I reached out to, and when I felt ready to go, I submitted to about 3 of my best tracks to really slow motion music, and to my kind of surprise, they got back to me and said, we like what we hear, and we think with a bit of work you might be able to pull this off. So they took me on board, you know.
Great. And have you submitted to any albums yet?
Yeah, I've had about 4 album release. I've released about 4 tracks with really slow motion music. Two horror albums and one uplifting orchestral album. I featured one of my tracks there. So I've been with really slow motion since 2018. So, but at the same time, I'm trying to do the TV stuff.
Stuff as well, yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't been kind of exclusively just working. That's the thing you'll find, is that a lot of the trailer guys, they don't know TV at all.
They're very much trailer heads, and that's like they're with a lot of the top trailer publishers, but they're just experts at trailer music.
Yeah. Whereas I'm trying to juggle both, which is kind of very hard, you know. And like the thing about it, like with really slow motion that I'm signed with, like I've gotten to know a lot of the artists that are signed with them, and I'd say 9 out of 10 of them are actually full time doing this. This is their job. This is what they do. Whereas I have a full time day job, you know. So I'm trying to juggle my day job, doing the TV stuff and doing the trailer stuff for really slow motion music, you know. So.
Yeah, because people if any composer listen, trailer music would still be considered niche, but yet it's not as niche as what it was when I first started looking into it. And granted, I'm not writing it, but it's starting to grow because a lot of people realize the money that's in it. The sync fees in trailer music are really, really high at times. You could be a composer, if you got 4 good syncs in a year, you would nearly have a salary done. You would if you got a certain syncs, and because most of the stuff is all AAA movies or AAA video games, so they're constantly big projects a lot of the time. Tomorrow I have a podcast with a trailer composer. I suppose I might as well name I have a podcast with Cody Steele.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, Cody's great.
Yeah, which Cody is very, very nice. I've talked to him loads of times, but he is a full-time trailer composer, and he has some outrageous syncs he does. He has like 80 plus syncs around 4 years he does, and some really, really high AAA syncs, and he would do it full-time. But if you get to that sort of level, you easily make a living doing trailer music.
No, I spoke to Cody a number of times. So he's a great guy, you know. And this is the thing, you'll find like a lot of the guys that are in this industry, they're really nice guys. They'll be happy to. Now, obviously, you know, you don't be bugging them. But, you know,
don't nag them. No, don't chase them around every day, messaging them.
Yeah. But if you're actually, you know, new in the, and don't be sending them your tracks. Like, I mean, nobody.
I was about to say that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, start a conversation, but like maybe you know, get to know the person. Like I mean, don't be like be genuine and be interested in them. You know, I've spoken to Cody. I really respect what he does. I think he's a really good composer. So yeah, that's great that you have him on. He's way more successful than I am in terms of trailer. I'm hoping. As I said, I haven't gotten that first trailer placement yet, but I'm hoping that this year maybe I might get my first. You know, so
no, hopefully you do, because trailer music is one of those things where that's one of my goals, even as a composer. When I do get back around to writing, once I try to get my production back up, so I want to be able to sit down and see it. There's a big AAA trailer and me just hearing that's my music, because trailer music there's just something about it. Just like it can make you feel like you're just going to do whatever task in the world and you just got to conquer it. It's just one of those epic styles of music that'll just make you feel something.
Yeah,
they're just I don't know, it's just something about it, but hopefully.
It's pure emotion, and this is and when I say pure emotion, I mean any emotion you can think of. You as the writer have to make millions of people feel a certain way. I think that's I mean, okay, like if someone who's an artist of like pop music, you know, a pop song is a pop song. It tends to have a certain way, and it might be happy, it might be sad, but it's kind of like, you know, verse, chorus, and, you know, it has a message in its lyrics. But to be actually have to write emotion that you might get a brief where, okay, horror music, you have to make everyone, the audience, feel a certain emotion. And I find that really exciting, that you can actually make effect, because they don't they don't know what's happening to them, because obviously they're watching the visual. But you watch a trailer without any music, it's weird.
It's very strange. Yeah, I've done a few. It's just go onto YouTube, just type in any trailer, you're thinking just mute the audio and watch it and just see if it has the same effect, and I guarantee it will not.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Nobody knows that there's a whole industry of guys out there. Just
kind of like.
Yeah, and because most people, as you probably know, most people think that the film composer of the movie done the music for the trailer, you know.
Which is it's not as completely separate. As I said, don't want to get into it too much, because then I'll end up boring into probably some of the stuff me and Cody end up talking about. But I did want to mention really slow motion, because it is a really big thing to be signed with. But that was a good point what you said. Like, people in the community are very approachable. As once you just don't go nagging or just don't be like a salesperson to them. Like, I can't remember the first time I text Cody, but I think it could have been about his trailer. I know I've texted him out a few times. His trailer cover of House of the Rising Sun. That's been placed in a few things. And I think I noticed the first in the Battlefield game, but it's an amazing trailer cover of that song. I really enjoy that song normally, but he did an amazing trailer cover of it. And I just got talking to him about it. And if you actually just show interest, and this is towards any composer, if you actually just show interest and just genuinely just want to chat with them, that will get you actually talking to them first. And then if you want to ask them a few more personal things later on, they'll probably be actually open to answering them to you in the first place.
Yeah, 100%. And like I suppose the advantage is like for me now, because I obviously work for one of the trailer publishers. Like a lot of guys, like a lot of these guys, they also worked for them, so you can kind of talk to them and about their particular tracks that they wrote for that particular same publisher that you write for, and you have it because you both work for the same company. You kind of have that thing straight away, like so.
Or like if you want if you want to try to make connections with people, try to say that you can offer them something. Like I genuinely can't remember our first conversation together, but the thing that got me and Danny talking a lot was because I'm doing music business. Danny was asking me a few music business related questions about sync and just about publishing different things, and I was happy to answer the questions. And then we talk about composing it, and then I also know he's successful within TV composers. I wanted to get him on here to just have a chat, and hopefully I can learn from him, and anyone who hears can learn from him as well, just talking about things. So it's just about actually just, if you can offer someone something else, don't be afraid to offer them, because it will come back around to you as well at some point. Well, hopefully if they're decent people, it will come back around to you. If not, well then that's just the way life goes sometimes. But
yeah, and with this virtual world thing, and we're all kind of reaching out to each other all over the world, so you kind of have to make your own judgment up as well. But as I said, most people, if you're genuine to them, and you honestly do want to know about them, and just as you say, you have something to offer them. Like if there's anything you can kind of help them with, like they'll happily talk to you. It's I do talk to you. Probably know Mark Rattray. He's one of the
he's a very big trailer composer as well. Yeah.
So I've had chats with him as well over the years or so, and he does a lot of television as well. So we compare notes and we chat about that kind of stuff. So they're all great guys. They're
All right, the last thing that I'll ask them before I let you go, if there is any composer sort of listening here, what advice would you actually give them if they're looking to get into live music? We kind of covered it earlier, but just a short sort of just end and just the direct sort of message to say how you think would be the sort of most direct way to get into, or the best way to sort of go about it.
Yeah, well, I suppose in terms of the production libraries, the key thing is do your homework first. Like don't just jump, because somebody said this or whatever. Do your research and find out about these particular publishers that you're looking at, and see if they are the real deal. Do they actually have the relationships? Do they have the clients? That's the key thing. And then I suppose on the other side of it is look at yourself. Look at your ability. Like, be honest with yourself. Are you actually at the level that you can kind of submit to these publishers? And if you're not, keep working on your craft, because like you might only get one chance at this. Like and if you happen to submit something that's only mediocre and really doesn't catch the ear of the music soup or the editor that happens to be at the other end, they may not look at you again, or like you want to make a very good first impression, and try and be like unique. Don't just like copy other people. When I write, I kind of write what I think sounds good to me. I never try to sound like anyone else. And if it sounds good to me, I just hope that they like it, and if they do, it's great. But that's the other thing. Dean Valentine was that was the thing he said to me. He left with me is find your voice, find your own voice.
Yeah, that's good advice. Well, Danny, is there anywhere people can find? I'll leave, if you want people to contact you, I can leave socials. Anywhere people can actually hear your music? Anywhere? Do you want to project names anywhere?
A lot of stuff I can't actually kind of share because it's signed exclusive. Like, so you won't probably hear any of my trailer stuff on SoundCloud. But like, if you Google Danni Clinton SoundCloud, you can find a lot of my TV stuff there. You can find me on social media as well. But that's my SoundCloud page would be where you could hear some of my TV stuff and stuff.
Well, I'll pop that into the description of this video then, I will, so people can actually go and listen to some of the music then.
Yeah, very good.
All right, Grant. Well, anyone who's listening to this, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It was mainly TV music based, library music, so I hope you learned a bit from Danny, as I know I did. As I said, the next podcast should be all to do with trailer music, so that should be interesting. If you've enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video.